I guess with that, I will introduce myself. I'm Jody Leight. I'm the Vice President of the Orange Citizens Action Group. Tony Johnson is with me. He is the President. And the Orange Citizens Action Group is a grassroots organization. We do not endorse any particular candidate for any office, but we try to empower Orange citizens by scheduling forums where all candidates can participate and see that citizens have the information they need to be informed and participate thoroughly. We were, just before the pandemic hit, in the process of getting incorporated as a nonprofit through the clinic at Rutgers Law, and that is on hold. But we hope that by the end of this year, we'll finally be an official 501c3. So, shall we start with opening statements now? And Quintavia Hall would be first alphabetically, but I don't think she has joined us yet. So
I gave her my cell phone, so hopefully if she has problems, she'll call me.
okay.
And if we could just ask that everyone mute themselves until their turn to speak, that will help just reduce background noise. Thank you.
Okay. And that's fine. And then if anybody's having a problem getting unmuted, just put something on the Q&A or on the chat, and Laura will be able to tell that that's happened and we'll be able to unmute you. So I guess since Miss Hilbert is not here, we will start with Mr. Holmes. And Mr. Holmes, you can unmute yourself. You have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? It's good to be here. I want to thank the Orange Citizen Action Group for putting together such a forum for all of the candidates to share their thoughts and concerns and the whys as to why they're running for this office. I want to congratulate all of the candidates because I know this is a challenge that we have all chosen to take on, and it can be a daunting task at times. So I just want to congratulate you all for taking a step forward to work in this community. I also want to continue to pray for those that have lost loved ones, those that have already gone on because of this coronavirus, and also those that are surviving the COVID-19. It's not easy, but I know together we can get this done. So as long as we work together, I think everything will be fine. Again, my name is Dwight Holmes, and I am a candidate for council at large, and I'm on line 8B. And my interest in running for councilman is mainly so that the residents, the constituents in the city of Orange Township can have a voice on the council as well as a vote on the council. My concern has always been that residents are not heard. And so with me as a candidate and a councilman as a councilman at large for the city of Orange Township, I will serve as that voice for all of the residents in the city of Orange Township. This is a seed that has been dropped in me for some time, and it is now coming into fruition. And I believe that as councilman at large, not just for a particular ward, but for this whole city at large, I would be instrumental in having the voices of the residents heard. I would be instrumental in ensuring that fiscal responsibility is happening in the city, and
5
that
seconds.
And then as the judicial aspect of the city government, I will serve the residents. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holmes. Next up alphabetically would be Mr. James. Okay, Mr. James, if you would unmute yourself, you have 2 minutes.
Mr. James, we can see and hear you whenever you're ready to speak. Oh, he's connecting to audio.
Okay.
He did not connect to audio. Let me think. Why don't we move to the next person on our list, and we can circle back to Mr. James.
I think he's having some problems with his audio.
Yes, I will try to give him a call.
Thank you. Okay, so I think next would be Mr. Marable.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Orange voters. My name is Edward B. Marable, Jr. I am 9B on your ballot. The campaign slogan that you will see underneath my name on the ballot says the most qualified candidate. I submit that that is more than a slogan, it is actually true. And I am the most qualified candidate for 3 good reasons. First, I have the experience. I have served 8 years on the Orange City Council. I have been the president and the vice president of the Orange City Council. I have always placed the wants and needs, the issues related to Orange voters and Orange residents at the forefront. I was an effective city council person. I have on my Facebook page listed video after video of prior council meetings in which you can watch my performance in action. Not related to promises, but related to what you can see in terms of my performance. Secondly, I have a skill set. I'm a licensed attorney and have been so for 25 years, both as a trial lawyer and as an appellate lawyer. Therefore, I bring a unique skill set to the Orange City Council that is much needed. I am a researcher. I am someone who can present both in writing and orally. But much of that which comes before the Orange City Council is sophisticated in nature and requires someone who has a skill set that is appropriate for those issues, contracts, and the like. Finally, I'd like to say that I have skin in the game. That's the third reason I'm the most qualified candidate. My wife and I pay $20,000 a year in property taxes, and I submit to you that that is the most significant issue facing Orange residents at this time. And you can look at it one of 2 ways. You can say, well, Ed Marable is running for city council because he wants to lower his own property taxes. And in the process, he'll lower mine as well. Or conversely, you could say Ed Marable is running for city council because he wants to lower your property taxes. And in the process, he will lower his as well. Frankly, I don't care. What's needed is that we have property tax stabilization in Orange. I have been a part of 7 municipal budgets in the past. And if any of the candidates before you can make that happen, I can. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marable. Have we solved Mr. James's audio problems yet?
Fortunately, he doesn't appear to have been able to connect to audio. I'm problem solving it now. Thank you.
Okay. So we will then move on to Mr. Montague while you try to do that. Mr. Montague, if you can unmute yourself, you have 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Weldon Montague III. I'm running for councilman at large in the great city of Orange, New Jersey. I'm line 16B. I have over 25 years of community service in the city of Orange, working with the Board of Education, working with kids, jobs. But my main focus, I want tax stabilization. I'm going to support our public safety. And one of my great attributes, I'm a great listener. A lot of people are going to tell you what they're going to do. What I like to do is listen. I like to find out what the citizens in Orange need and want, and I'm going to help them solve some of their needs and wants. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. And let's begin. Let's begin.
Thank you. Okay. If we haven't solved Mr. James's audio problem yet, we'll move on to Mr. Toussaint. And correct me if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
You are pronouncing it correctly. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Charlie. First of all, I would like to just open up my part of this meeting by just saying a special thank you to our first responders in our city for all the work that they're doing around COVID-19 and all of our residents. Thank you. A special thank you to all of our first responders. I would like to start with just saying thank you to the Orange Citizens Action Group for inviting me to be a part of this discussion today. And a special thanks to our residents in our town for your nomination. I so gratefully and humbly thank you. Today, I want to make the case to all of my neighbors in Orange that I am someone that can be trusted with your vote. That means introducing legislation that reflects the needs of all of our residents. In addition, I would like to see work solely done for our residents as it relates to supermarket options in our town, as we have virtually nothing. As a licensed social worker with over 25 years of experience with reoccurring social problems in our community on a group level and on an individual level, I've seen it all. I have a clear understanding of what our families, our seniors, our youth, our physically and mentally disabled are going through. I am an experienced public servant with over 25 years, and I humbly ask for you to give me a chance to serve. Please vote for me, line 10B, Kenneth Toussaint, and I thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, I think that is everyone who's here, unless we can, have we resolved Mr. James's audio problems yet? Okay, I think we're still trying to resolve Mr. James's audio problems, and he's not on video right now. So what we'll do is we will move on to the first questions, and at whatever time we finally manage to resolve Mr. James's audio problems, we will give him a chance to make an opening statement because we do want to be fair to everyone. And he would have been next up for the first question. So again, we'll just alter the rotation. The times we're going through now are all about being nimble and pivoting. And we're having an example now of how to do that in action. So the first question is one that we had not initially planned on asking, but I know that this awful pandemic is on the minds of everyone in Orange. There is not a family or household that hasn't been affected either directly or through a friend, neighbor, or loved one. So the first question, which I will ask for all the candidates, and I will pose it first to Mr. Marable, is do you think that what the City Council has been doing to address the needs of Orange's residents in this pandemic are adequate, and what would you do to improve them?
Well, thank you for the question. I don't know if it's fair to say or to single out the City Council exclusively in terms of a response.
Of course not.
All levels of Orange government have been responding. Unfortunately, I am dissatisfied with some of the response that I've seen. There have been clear directives from medical professionals, from the White House, from our governor, from medical professionals in terms of what we should be doing and what we should not be doing. We should be social distancing. We should be wearing masks and gloves. And we should, for lack of a better term, be quarantining ourselves. Unfortunately, in the city of Orange, that has not consistently been happening. And some of the prime culprits of that are city officials. We are visiting people, particularly seniors. And I think that's quite unfortunate because they are one of the most susceptible groups. We are going into senior buildings and campaigning, handing out literature, doing so-called wellness checks. And I do believe that these behaviors are inappropriate because they place Orange citizens at risk. We are talking a good game. We are putting out literature. We are creating task forces, but we are not practicing what we preach. And I believe that Orange's government is better than that. We should be doing more than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marable. Okay, see, okay. Okay.
Unfortunately, we're having ongoing audio problems. We are working on it. Thank you for your patience.
So we will move on and ask Mr. Montague the same question. And of course, we're not saying the city council has exclusive control over the city's response. 90 seconds. But in terms of the council's role, are you satisfied with the council's response to the epidemic, and what would you change?
Well, I think they're doing a good job as far as their response. I see, the citizens of Orange there following all the necessary precautions as far as distancing, wearing masks. I even see that, basically they're adhering to the curfew.
Mm-hmm.
But as Mr. Marable said, I think everything starts at the top. I'm not seeing the mayor. He's not following the procedures. We need to protect our citizens, and you got to lead by example. But I think all in all, the citizens of Orange, they're following procedures. It's getting better. So yes, I think right now, if we follow the correct procedures, we'll be okay in the city of Orange.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Toussaint?
Thank you, Jody. Overall, I think Orange residents are doing the very best they can in the environment that's presented to them. I must say that I'm very disappointed with the mayor. I must say that I agree with the other panelists that it really starts from the top. And when you have a mayor go into a senior citizens building, doing any sort of, any behavior at this point in a senior citizens building, in my opinion, is just totally inappropriate. We're in the midst of a pandemic, and that should not be happening. And that saddens me. And I'm very disappointed in our current leadership.
Here's more time. Okay, thank you. And I note all of the candidates are being concise in their responses, which is a nice change for politicians. Okay. Let me circle back to Mr. Holmes now. Same question.
Thank you, Jody.
Thanks.
In my opinion, each individual needs to be responsible for their own. I know the question is about the city council and what the city government is doing, but as a municipal government elected official, we are bound by the rules and regulations and the bylaws that come from the county, from the state, as well as nationally from the president. And social distancing is one of the laws that they have put into place, or regulations that they've stipulated. And even when going out, we have to be masked and gloved. So I think if everyone is consistent with doing what they can do to ensure that this pandemic does not spread, I think we will be okay. Is there more that can be done? Sure. There could be more information shared. There could be more opportunities for individuals to reach out via these type sites, Zoom and other meeting distantly.
15 seconds.
I think that's one of the ways that we can help to combat this pandemic and get out of this stronger. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So the next question yourself is, and this is going to be a little bit different for those of you. Okay, if you have served on the city council or another legislative body before, I'm going to ask you to explain how your experience there would best help, would show how you would help the citizens of Orange, and particularly, can you highlight a problem that came before you while on the council, and how you addressed it? And if you haven't served on the council, any other leadership or community position you've been in, how you rose to a challenge, and how this would show how you would be able to best help the citizens of Orange. So I think we started with Mr. Marable first last time. So we will start now with Mr. Holmes. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, with
Montague.
Mr. Montague. Okay. Rotation's all off. Sorry about that.
I'll jump in anytime though.
Okay.
Okay. Now, currently for the past 12 years, I've been past 10 years, I've been part of the Orange Democratic Committee. I've served in almost every position, including vice chairman, and different positions. What we try to do is bring up the vote, sign up new voters registration. That's one of the roles I had. Also in Orange, I created a job readiness program through the city of Orange, where I help kids, seniors in high school get jobs, training, guided them toward college. Over the summer 2019, I brought in 20 individuals to work at Orange High School. So, and the budget, they didn't have to use the budget. It was free through a grant program. So I brought them to Orange High. They worked summer jobs, 20 students through Miss Oliveira at Orange High, and it didn't cost the city any money. So I used the grant to help my community.
15 seconds.
Excuse me?
15 seconds.
Okay. And I have a lot of programs that I did throughout the Board of Education, City of Orange, helping individuals. So that right there, I'll stop there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Toussaint?
Thank you, Jody. Many years ago in another life, I did serve on the board of directors for a major condominium complex. And the issues that really plagued at that time was getting those who lived in the complex to buy into the leadership, and to buy, especially for those who are poorer, those who are of lesser means, to get them to buy into the idea or fact, as you may see it, that the system is designed for them as well. The biggest problem, I think, in working in any type of government system or any type of governing body is to get the people at the bottom of the totem pole to buy into the system being for them. And sometimes people at the bottom of the totem pole always gets the scraps, and it's oftentimes just not fair. More currently, as I've been living here in Orange for a few years now, there's been some issues with pools and with water bills. And I've been very influential in moving forward legislation, helping to move forward legislation regarding water bill fairness and pool usage. We were paying for water that was not going into the sewer, and no one in Orange even thought to even bring that to the front. So I'm very proud to say that at this point, with my effort, I was able to bring it to the city council, and now they're in the process of passing fair.
15 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I see Mr. James has been connecting to audio. Is that you still? Is that working yet? No, still. Okay.
Sorry about that. Who's on?
Okay. So that was Mr. Toussaint. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll move on to Mr. Holmes now.
Thank you, Jody.
Thanks.
Although I have not served on the city council yet, I do want to say that as the chairman of the City of Orange Township Planning Board, one of the things that I must say I'm proud of is the fact of having the developers as they present their development before the planning board. Prior to that, I have been implementing the responsibility to have the developers during the technical review of the plans that they have presented, that they speak with not just the planner and the engineers for the planning board, but also the Board of Education, because a lot of development is including multiple units, and it is going to, though they say it may not, it's going to impact the educational system with overcrowding and other issues that will be detrimental to the educational system. So I'm proud to say that I've been instrumental in implementing
15
process
seconds.
where developers not just speak with the experts, but also with the Board of Education regarding their plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and just finally, Mr. Marable.
Yes, thank you. During my first term on the Orange City Council, realized that Orange was operating on a fiscal year, that being from July 1st to June the 30th of each year. Unlike the state and other municipalities around us, we were different in that regard. The state was operating on a calendar year, from January 1st to December 31st. In response to that, I drafted legislation to switch Orange from a fiscal year to a calendar year. Not only did that bring us in line with the state, it also resulted in a mini windfall for the city of Orange, whereas we received 6 months of additional funding from the state as a result. Additionally, prior to my own draft of legislation allowing videotaping of city council meetings in the city of Orange, transparency was a real issue. There was nothing codified that allowed that. That legislation drafted by me ushered in an era of televised city council meetings, and I think that has been beneficial to all Orange residents. On another level, I received numerous complaints during my tenure from
15 seconds.
at Haywood Avenue School who indicated they had no place to park. I changed the Orange parking ordinance to allow for a different time for street cleaning, which allowed parking for teachers and staff of Haywood Avenue School. My entire career, I have been most responsive to the residents and their needs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And that's actually a good segue into our next question. There have been some recent changes in the City Council's meeting practices regarding public comments. There have been complaints about council members' attitudes towards the public, and there have also been a lot of questions about how long it takes to get a response to Oprah requests. So the question of each of the candidates is, how would you improve these processes? And I think since Mr. Montague spoke first on the last question, we will move now to Mr. Toussaint.
Thank you, Jody. I think plain and simple and short, I think there should be a separate meeting just for questions so that people can have all the time they need to address all of the answers. I don't think it's appropriate to cut anyone off. Residents are very passionate about what they believe, and I think that needs to be respected. And the way in which you respect that is having a separate meeting for just questions only to be facilitated by the City Council.
Thank you. Okay, do you have any response?
Thank you.
Okay. You have a little bit more time, so I'm going to ask if you have any response to the question about dealing with Oprah requests. That's the Open Public Records Act.
This is for you, Mr. Toussaint.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Could you repeat that, please?
Okay, sorry. So you have a little time left, so I was going to ask if you had anything to say about the council's rate of response to Oprah requests, Open Public Records Act requests.
I think that, again, I think that the response is minimal. I think that it should be more, it should reflect the time frame in which we need more time to address these questions. I just think that these issues should be departmentalized in terms of giving it special time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll move to Mr. Holmes. Mr. Holmes, can you, okay.
Jody, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, okay. There's been There have been changes in the council's meeting practices recently regarding public comments and the ability to make them. And there have been complaints about slow responses to Oprah requests. So how, as a council member, would you address these issues?
First and foremost, as a council person, you must demonstrate respect, not just respect for yourself, but respect for others and your constituents, those that have voted you into the elected government. Whether they voted or not for you, you have to respect them. And that's one of the things that I see would benefit the city council meetings. As far as public comments, everyone should be allowed to voice their concerns. And I agree with Mr. Toussaint, it should be a separate meeting. One of the things that the Orange Board of Education has done, they've moved from one meeting to 2 meetings. And the first meeting is strictly administrative issues where they're dealing with the concerns as far as the board is concerned. And then the other meeting is addressing the awards that the students in the school district have received, as well as the teachers and the administration. So by going to 2 different meetings where one is strictly
15 seconds.
for the judicial aspect, the other meeting can be specifically for comments from the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Marable. Okay, do you have the question? Or do you need me to repeat it?
No, I don't need you to repeat it. Thank you. There are several layers to your question, and I will attempt to address each one. First and foremost, as an elected official in the city of Orange, I work for you, the residents of the city of Orange. What I've heard consistently from Orange residents is that they desire more time to be heard at council meetings. I am open to that. The changes actually took place years ago where citizens' time was reduced while I was on the city council, and the record is clear that I voted against that at the time. I think to some extent it has to do with who sits in the seat of city council president in terms of the efficacious nature of the meetings. It can be handled better. However, residents have been arrested at city council meetings. They have been locked up for minimal protest, silent protest. There have been lawsuits as it relates to citizens. I have a problem with all of that. As it relates to the Open Public Records Act, I was advised by the city at one point upon requesting information that I would have to fill out an Oprah request, sitting city councilman. That is ridiculous. The law controls the Open Public Records, the Oprah request.
15 seconds.
Non-compliant in general with fulfilling residents' requests. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marable. Okay, Mr. Montague, same question. Mr. Montague?
Yes, you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Okay, can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself? You're muted. Can you unmute yourself? You should see a little microphone and okay, can I unmute? Okay, I've unmuted.
You hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
First of all, of course, with the citizens, we work for the citizens of Orange. We are the voice of the people. So we have to find a way, and maybe what Mr. Toussaint said, have a separate meeting or a separate forum where we can answer questions, because they deserve the answers to their questions. They're important. So given the disrespect to our constituents, I don't think we can't have it. So I would be in favor of either a second meeting or me even having a 5 or 10 minute, give them 5 or 10 minutes to vent what they need to talk about. But the only reason we're here is because of our constituents, and they need to have a voice. So I'm definitely in favor of maybe another meeting or a forum so they can speak.
Anything about Oprah requests?
Well, we should be able to answer any questions they have. Anything that our constituents need to know, we should be able to give them responses. So I agree.
15 seconds.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Toussaint?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Toussaint, you haven't, okay. Mr. Toussaint?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Or did he start the question?
okay, you started this question. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm losing track of things. Okay, so we will actually start, you were the first respondent, so we'll start with Mr. Holmes for the next question, and we'll swing back to you. Sorry about that. Okay, so Mr. Holmes, if you can unmute yourself. The next question is about fiscal responsibility. And in recent years, the council has considered and acted on a lot of salary, pension, and healthcare matters, including increasing its own and the mayor's salaries recently by, I think, 100% and more than, in one case, and more than 100% in others. Given Orange's fiscal condition, how would you judge the council's recent actions in terms of fiscal responsibility, and how would you change the council's approach to fiscal actions in the future?
The concern that I always had regarding the 100% pay raise was that it was done during the summer when not a lot of residents are present at the city council meetings. And it was almost as if it was slipped in under cover of night. To the point of the Oprah request, Oprah helps to facilitate transparency within the city government, which is needed and is, I know it has been asked for over several years. So to increase the mayor's salary as well as the city council member's salary 100% is something that I, in my lifetime, have never seen, not just in the city, but in any other corporation, company, business, where any one individual got a pay raise of 100%. With that said, the city council is responsible for
15
fiscal,
seconds.
thank you, fiscal responsibility. And I know that there's individuals that are working in City Hall that can do more for a little less than paying a separate salary to an individual that may not be as effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Marable, you can unmute yourself. Okay, so the question is
I have the question.
Okay, very good.
Obviously, I was not on the city council when that vote was taken. Had I been a council member then, I would have voted against it. However, I voted against many issues related to irrational, improper spending that other members of the council thought were appropriate. The salary and wages of city council and the mayor is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. There are so many friends, there are so many relatives, there are so many cronies on Orange's payroll. It is unbelievable. And many of them, the city council doesn't even know who they are and where they work. That the question of Orange's finances has to do with an expansion of ratables. People coming into the city, investing in housing development, in commercial development and the like. And what is lacking in the city of Orange right now is the trust that people have that they're doing business with a credible government. Beyond that, money is being stolen. It's not that we don't have money, it's that it's being stolen. And again, that's not the opinion of Ed Marable, that's the opinion of the federal government. The U.S. Attorney's Office has charged and convicted
15 seconds.
Money from Orange's budget. That's where we need to be looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Montague. Mr. Montague, can you unmute yourself? Okay. Okay.
We can hear you now, Mr. Montague. Go
Thank
ahead.
No. I can't
Still can't hear Mr. Montague.
I'll see if I can do it from my end.
Okay.
Unmute audio. Nope. Uh, sorry. Let's see.
Okay.
Why is that?
And while we're waiting, I'll tell everybody listening or watching that we've already gotten one question from an attendee, which will be the first one that we ask after we finish with the preset questions, and do encourage people to write in more questions. We have enough time to answer them.
For some reason, this is not working. I apologize. Mr. Montague, would you be willing to hit the mute button on your screen again? I don't understand why it won't go off, and I can't turn it off either. Sorry about that. Let's see.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back.
Great.
Something happened. My computer went off. I don't know what happened. All right, I'm here. Can you
So,
repeat the question, please?
yes, it has been a while. Okay, so the council has in recent years acted on salary, pension, and healthcare matters, and those actions have included doubling their own salaries and the mayor's salaries. Given Orange's fiscal condition, how would you judge the council's recent actions, and how would you approach these issues going forward?
Well, I know for a fact that they definitely had hearings, but as far as I'm concerned, fiscal responsibility is very important. The only way we can get a handle on our taxes is to things like salaries being doubled should have never been allowed, as far as I'm concerned. So we have to be more fiscally responsible. And like Ed Marable said, a lot of the salaries, we got to get a handle on our entire budget. Has to be more honesty, integrity, so the council can do their job. So, you know, fiscal responsibility is very, very important. So we can get everything under control in the city of Orange.
Thank you. So, and finally, Mr. Toussaint.
Thank you, Jody. What comes to mind when I think of those raises is just horrible. I don't know if any. I'm a seasoned public servant, and I have never gotten 100% raise on my base salary ever. And I think it's horrible that has happened. What I would challenge the current city council to see is those raises that they got, they can take those monies and feed the homeless, or take care of our mentally ill, or in fact help create night care for single women who are trying to make a living and they need someone to watch their children. That's where that money probably could have been of better use. But to get back to the premise of this whole discussion, I would say that this is all about management. This is all about having qualified people in place to manage our monies, and not have political cronies or family members or people getting hired to take these jobs because you know someone. We need to get Orange back on a track of having disciplined professionals to manage our monies and to make responsible decisions over these contracts that we have. That we have contracts that are overly inflated, that goes into the next 25 and 30 years that we have no control over. And that's horrible. So the bottom line for me in this discussion is we need to better balance our money, and we need to have better fiscal responsibility. We need to have qualified people to manage our money, not just any Joe Blow off the street that likes whoever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have one final question, and following that, I see we already have 3 questions from attendees, maybe actually 5. So we'll move on to the public questions, and then at the end of that, each of the candidates will have a chance to make a closing statement. My last question. Okay, right. Okay. My last question concerns city planning and just for the general public, planning ordinances, zoning, historic preservation ordinances. The city council is responsible ultimately for passing those and seeing that they're enforced, and they have a lot to do with our quality of life here in Orange. So the question is to each of the candidates, in your opinion, have the current members of the city council demonstrated adequate understanding of all these complicated resolutions and ordinances having to do with planning and zoning and historic preservations? And if elected, what would you do to ensure that you as a council member has the necessary understanding to act responsibly on these matters? I believe Mr. Holmes spoke first this last time, so Mr. Marable, you will go first this time.
Thank you. There was a resolution introduced in the last several months in the Orange City Council to have a 17-year-old sit. I believe it was on the zoning board. It may have been on the planning board, but I think it was the zoning board. It was well supported amongst members of the Orange City Council. I disagree with that position. I would not have voted for it. And I think it represents a desire to have young people mentored and raised up, if you will, to accept positions of leadership thereafter. But those issues involve millions and millions of dollars. They involve Orange's most valuable commodity beyond its residents, which is our land. And I personally don't feel comfortable allowing a 17-year-old to weigh in on those types of issues. Reasonable minds can disagree. To me, that's a no-brainer, but I would have, again, been in the minority opinion in that regard. Orange's involvement in planning and related issues has been focused, our master plan has been almost exclusively focused on
15 seconds.
Housing and more housing. A city of 2.2 square miles with limited parking and major infrastructure problems is going to have a problem if we continue in those areas along the lines of housing.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Montague.
Yes.
Okay. So same question with regards to the ordinances about planning, zoning, historic preservation, and so on. Has the council demonstrated adequate understanding of these issues? And what would you do to be sure that you have the necessary information to act responsibly in those matters?
Well, I want to be honest. I'm not really familiar with that particular topic, but what I would like to do, I want to do a little research. I know that the council, the contracts are on an annual basis, most 2 years, which is very few, and this is dictated by state law. But right now, what I want to do is move on to the next subject because I'm not really familiar, and I don't want to talk about something I'm not really familiar about. Okay.
Okay.
I have no knowledge of that part of that.
Okay, but you're saying that you would do research.
I would do research before I make any decision for the city of Orange. All my decisions is based on the best interests of Orange, New Jersey residents. Okay, at all times.
Thank you. Okay. That's Mr. Montague. Moving on to Mr. Toussaint.
Thank you, Jody. What I would first say is I'm not convinced that all the city council members are well versed in the laws as it pertains to the aforementioned. What I will say is, in terms of infrastructure, we really need to be prepared for what does that really mean in the long term, in terms of water usage, in terms of pipes, in terms of building, in terms of our school system. We need to really think these things through. To specifically answer the question regarding whether how I would deal with the information moving forward, I would definitely look at analyze the facts, separate facts from opinion. There's an expression that clearly says, you have a right to your opinion, but you don't have a right to rewrite facts. Facts are what they are. And if all the decisions are made by what's factual, and we make our decisions by what's factual, we should have no problems. Oftentimes I've seen that people use their opinions and try to make them facts without doing research and coming to these meetings well-informed and educated and well-versed on the issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Holmes, finally?
Yes, as the chairman of the City of Orange Township Planning Board, I do know that zoning flexibility will allow for profitable development. But profitable development needs to be profitable not just for the developer, but also for the residents. I know that we have just approved various areas of improvement or rehabilitation. And this provides an opportunity for residents, homeowners that want to beef up or improve their property. So this zoning, the development has to work for not just Big Joe, but also for the little guy, the residents of Orange. And that's one of my roles that I want to ensure is happening as an elected official for the city council, to ensure that the residents are being heard and that the decisions that are being made are going to benefit those residents. I do know that Councilwoman Eason is a member of the planning board, so she's the only one that I could speak
15 seconds.
as far as any council members and their knowledge. But other than that, I will stay mute.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, that's the end of the prepared questions. And we have several questions from attendees, and we have 44 attendees. We have 13 questions, so it's good to see we have active participation. The first question, and we'll give, because we have a fair amount of questions, I'm going to ask everyone keep your response to a minute or less if possible, so we can get to all of them. So the first question is from Christina Scott, who is concerned about the school issues. Many of us in Orange pay high property taxes, but we're not comfortable sending our elementary school to children in the district. Some people either move out or opt for private school, but that's not an option we want everyone to rely on. So how, as a council member, would each of you address this? And I think Mr. Marable gave the first answer last time. So Mr. Montague, if you can unmute yourself. You were unmuted for a second and you're now muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
All right, what I'm noticing in the city of Orange, well, of course, we have the STEM school, which is for the students that, they test high above the average student. Plus, also in Orange High, they have AP courses. So I think Orange High, the last few years, we've been graduating students at a higher rate. They've been going to college at a higher rate. I think we got to give our schools a chance. I see it growing. I'm supporting anything to do with our education, our school board. But I understand people's apprehension to want to send people to
15
school.
seconds.
So I see a big change in our school system, and I think it's worth a chance sending out our kids to elementary school and just give it a chance.
Thank you. Okay. So, Mr. Toussaint, how would you answer that?
Thank you, Jody. Again, first, I would like to say that I do understand that at this point, we have City Council has no jurisdiction over the Board of Education. We have nothing to say about what they do. They are their own separate entity, and I understand that. However, I will say that a relationship should be built from the ground up between the City Council and the Board of Education to try to bring about change. The reality is, if we could talk about this pink elephant in the middle of the floor, the reputation of the Orange school system is not good. A lot of people who want to buy homes will not buy homes in this town because of the school district. And people with children don't want to come to this town because of the bad reputation of the school. And it starts with the teachers, it starts with the quality of teaching and discipline. So I would say it starts with first developing having a reputation and building a relationship with the board, although we have nothing to do with what they do.
Thank you. Okay. That was Toussaint. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, and Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Jody. This is near and dear to me because I'm not only an employee of the Orange Board of Education, but I'm a product of the Orange Board of Education. And my children are involved. They attend Orange Public Schools. So this is near and dear to me. And I see firsthand that our elementary schools are top notch. The teachers that we have working for the children of Orange are top notch. We've had several candidates for Teacher of the Year. Our high school is graduating students in colleges that have never been heard of before as graduates from Orange High School. We have Stanford, we have
15 seconds.
Community colleges. And the challenge that the school district has is the middle school, where the only issue is individuals, students from various parts of the community are housed in one building for the very first time. And that causes a challenge, but that is being worked on because this district, I truly believe, is going from good to great. And I want to thank Mr. Lee, the former superintendent, and Dr. Fitzhugh, who is the current superintendent.
Thank you. Okay. Next question. This is to Alderman. This is a okay. The question is, do
Marable
any?
didn't go.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Mr. Marable. My apologies.
That's okay, thank you. It is a common misconception that the City Council in the City of Orange has any sway as it relates to the Board of Education or the issue of education in the City of Orange. We don't appoint the superintendent. Members of the board are elected. We have absolutely no involvement as it relates to curriculum and the like. When you pay your taxes, a portion of that goes to the county, a portion of that goes to the Board of Education, and a portion of that goes to the municipality. Other than issues such as, for example, as a councilman, it crossed my desk that the Board of Education wanted to purchase at a nominal fee the old police station, Tremont Avenue building. We got involved in issues such as that, but as it relates to the day in, day out,
15 seconds.
The education of your children, the City Council really has no impact on that whatsoever.
Thank you. Okay. Next public question is, do you agree that there should be a forensic audit performed on city finances? And I believe Mr. Montague spoke first last time, so the first answer would be from Mr. Toussaint.
Absolutely. 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 With the poor spending, with these horrible contracts that I've been witness to read about, with absolutely, we need to be accountable with raising property taxes. We need to know why. I think we absolutely, uncategorically need a forensic audit ASAP. Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes?
I couldn't say it any better. Absolutely, without a doubt. And because of the recent work that was done from the federal government, it is imperative that it is done expeditiously. Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Marable?
Well, my answer to that is yes, with the understanding that forensic audits are extremely expensive. It's not something that should be done annually. What is done annually is we have an audit. Look at the city's audit from year to year to year, as I have done every year. The same problems are cited and the same recommendations are made, and they are never followed. So it's beyond just a forensic audit. We have a normal, regular audit that we don't put any stock in ever, and that has to change. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Montague?
Unequivocally, yes. We need a forensic audit. We need office audits. We got to trim away some of the fat and make sure we make good decisions as far as our finances.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Looks like we have unanimity on this one, which as a taxpayer, I have to admit I find heartening. I have an anonymous question now. There have been reports about city workers using city equipment and city time for their own benefit. And how would we respond to that? So Mr. Marable was the, no, Mr. Sweetheart, help me out. Who was the first responder last time?
It is me.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you all are keeping track of this. I'm losing my marbles here.
Jody, I'm telling you, you're doing a great job. And I wouldn't want your end of the job.
Okay, Mr. Holmes.
So the question again, I'm sorry.
Okay, there have been reports about city workers using city
Yes.
equipment and time for their own benefit, and how would you respond to that?
Okay. And short and sweet, that is wrong. That is absolutely wrong. If a city official is using a city property, whether it's a vehicle, whether it's a hammer, for their personal use, that is wrong. And that's where we need to be on alert as residents of Orange to make sure that that is not happening. And if it is, and we see it, we need to report it. Now, we may be reporting to the one that's doing it, but that's something that we have to be responsible in as residents of Orange to make sure that city utilities, whether it's
15
a
seconds.
hammer, a car, or even an individual is not being used for personal gain. That's wrong.
Thank you. Mr. Marable?
Yes, if you go to my Facebook page, Marable for Orange City Council, you will see a video of me during an actual Orange City Council meeting addressing this very issue. And it is an issue that I addressed over and over and over again. Each year, the City of Orange fills out a best practices questionnaire with the state that qualifies them for aid. And one of those questions deals with the use of city vehicles. And every year, the city pretends that employees are not using city vehicles for personal use. Nothing is further from the truth. I cite an example during the meeting that I just pointed to of a city employee taking an Orange vehicle to the hospital to be admitted and having other city employees retrieve it there.
15 seconds.
Our vehicles use gas, there's wear and tear, there's depreciation, there's tires. These are all costing us money and it needs to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Montague?
Yes. Well, I didn't mention it earlier, but I've been working with New Jersey Department of Labor for the past 25 years. I'm still there. And with state government, you're not allowed to take property home, use property. As far as we're concerned, we have to sign off on a form. And it could be punishable through suspension or possibly being fired. They should know that you can't do it. So I haven't seen it personally. I know a lot of people in Orange that I know that work in the city of Orange. But it's, as far as I'm concerned, misuse of government property is punishable suspension.
15 seconds.
Okay, so yes, we shouldn't be able to do it. I personally haven't saw it done before.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Toussaint.
Well, I personally have. I've personally witnessed a theft of service. It should not be taken lightly. It enrages me that this is happening. And I will go as far as to say there should be an anonymous hotline where you can send in video footage of city employees actually doing this. So yes, I'm definitely for, I have no sympathy for any city employee who steals from taxpayers. And I will also go as far as to say that I know that staff at City Hall know this is happening, and they look the other way. This is horrible, and it needs to stop. And I would say that we need to have a hotline where video footage could be sent in so that this could be witnessed firsthand.
15 seconds. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Toussaint.
Mr. Toussaint just responded.
Okay, so thank you, Laura, for, and I know that Mr. James is still trying to log in. I feel bad about this, but I don't know. He just tried to call my cell phone, but we have not been able to fix his audio yet. Next public question. See, and I'm taking this a bit out of order. We have a lot, so I'm trying to pick first ones I think will be of most interest to more members of the public, and then we'll come back. So the question is, do any of the candidates agree that pilots should be limited to 5 years and require a community development agreement with the developer? And for our attendees, a pilot is a payment in lieu of taxes, and what that means is instead of paying full real estate taxes, a developer gets a break for a set period of time, and they're paying less than they normally would in taxes. It's an incentive to the developer, but of course, the tax money is still needed, so the rest of us are making up the difference. And we've had pilots for as long as 30 years for some developers. So this is a matter of, I think, great concern. See, Mr. Marable got the first one last time?
I think so.
Okay, so Mr. Montague, I think you're first up on this, and I know the candidates will correct me if I get out of sequence again.
Okay. As far as I'm concerned, as far as pilots, we need tax dollars in our city. Maybe they should lower it, maybe to 2 years. I don't believe in individuals not paying taxes. We need our tax dollars. And so as far as 5 years, maybe we can decrease it. Any decrease is an increase in taxes received by the city, which can in turn lower taxes or help keep taxes level. So, you know, as far as that's concerned, I don't believe in it.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Toussaint?
I don't believe in it as well. I believe that developers need to be paying the full tax bill. The only way I would even consider my view on that is if we get something for our residents in return for a reduction in taxes, something that would clearly benefit the community, not backhanded, but very, very much uphanded.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes?
Yes, I do think that the pilot program is beneficial to not just the residents, but also to the developers. It encourages development within the city where it could benefit, where the new development can benefit the residents. And as Mr. Toussaint just said, I think it should be a one hand washing the other. In lieu of the pilot program, the developers should be responsible for providing an area for the community to use as a banquet hall or a conference center or some sort of area where the public can use this area to for whatever event they may deem necessary.
15 seconds.
And yes, I do think it should be limited to absolutely no more than 10 years, 5 preferably.
Thank you. And Mr. Marable.
What served me well in my last 8 years on the Orange City Council, and what I believe will serve me well in my next 4 years, is that I have come to view every project on its own merits. In other words, I don't have a broad brush approach to these types of issues. There may very well be a project down the pike that I believe is appropriate for a lengthy pilot. That's unlikely, but it may be, so I don't rule it out. Generally, Orange has devolved into giving every project, every development, every developer a 30-year pilot, and that I do disagree with. What we need to do is start to increase the quality of those developers who are coming into Orange. What I see currently is inexperienced developers with small track records.
15 seconds.
Not in favor of. But I would never rule it out, but it is unlikely that I would vote in favor of it. I would view every project on its own merits.
Thank you. Okay. So the next question is, with all the new construction and increase in population in the city, we've had a strain on the city's infrastructure in terms of water, sewers, I think school capacity, I'm going to add that one. Can the city's infrastructure handle this, and what should the council do to increase capacity? And it's Mr. Toussaint first. Mr. Toussaint?
I would say at this point that I don't have an answer to that, because I have to research, and I would have to research and get the facts in order to make an intelligent answer. What I can say in this conversation is that we really need to make sure that we have all of the facts in front of us as it relates to infrastructure, as it relates to our school system, as it relates to our infrastructures such as roads and highways. So to answer the question intelligently, I don't have an answer. I would have to look at all the facts before I can give an intelligent answer.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Holmes.
I believe that the infrastructure in Orange is a challenge for a lot of developers, for a lot of individuals. I know that the infrastructure has been a sore point for the hospital center in the Orange area. I know that has put off a lot of developers for coming into this city to develop that area. And so with that said, we need to look at all of the infrastructure that we can, so that we can make wiser decisions and look at different opportunities for developers to come into to improve on this city. As far as the roads, we have county roads in this city that we need to reach out to the counties to get assistance with helping with that infrastructure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Marable?
Yes, thank you. The biggest infrastructure issues Orange has, to my thinking, are related to the quality of our roads and a related issue of parking. You can ride down the streets in Orange and you think you're in the Flintstone mobile. The ride is so hippity hop. And there's not enough parking for our residents, particularly during snow and inclement weather. This issue is directly related to the influx of housing coming into Orange. There's simply not enough parking to accommodate the need. So it's really going to have to be everyone coming together to plan effectively. But I am not in favor of continued housing development in Orange. I think it is directly related to the infrastructure problems that we have.
15 seconds.
Roads and the dearth of parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And Mr. Montague? You're still muted.
All of the candidates had great views on this subject. I agree, parking is terrible. The roads, it's a direct effect for the overcrowding in Orange. So what I would like to do, each project, you have to do a little study. So we definitely have to do a little more research before we bring in new housing. Parking is terrible in our city. The roads, Public Works has a strain every day. Like Mr. Marable said, potholes, and Public Works is doing the best they can. I know those guys. But before we bring in new projects, we have to do the
15
planning board,
seconds.
we have to do more. So right now, it depends what we're doing, and I want to do a little more research. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 questions about planning. And one of them is, do any of the candidates feel that we have an overabundance of low-income housing in relation to middle-income or market rate housing at this point? And how should the city council answer that? Mr. Holmes first. Okay.
I would love to see market rated housing come into the city of Orange Township. I would actually like to see opportunities for home ownership to come into the city of Orange Township. I've always believed if you build it, they will come. And that's the mindset we need to keep in mind when it comes to development. There are several abandoned houses that that could use rehabilitation, so that some of the residents here in the city of Orange Township can benefit and join home ownership programs where they can take over those homes. I had
15 seconds.
2 homes right here on my street that are in the process, that one has been developed and taken over by a homeowner, and one is in the process. So it is important that we increase the units that we build here in the city of Orange Township. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Marable.
Yes, thank you. You know, I'm sure there's a standard set somewhere, but frankly, I don't even know what low-income housing, moderate income is anymore. If you look at housing and lowest price housing, it is exorbitant. The lowest rents are high rents. So I'm not even sure what it means anymore. What I will say in response to your question, what Orange has not been doing is enough market rate housing. That is housing wherein those homeowners would pay their fair share of taxes. And this goes back to the question regarding the pilots. We need a mix of housing in Orange, but what we need most currently is market rate housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Montague?
I also agree. We need more market rate housing. We also need affordable housing and first-time home buyer programs to help to empower our citizens to live in Orange. We have a lot of citizens that leave the city of Orange because of the high income and the rents. And rent stabilization is going out of the door. So we need to take a look. I'm into inclusion. I want everybody. We need affordable housing. We also need subsidized housing. We also need home ownership. Everybody in Orange, there's a place for everybody, and we want our residents to stay.
15 seconds.
Thank you. Okay, and Mr. Toussaint.
Thank you, Jody. First up, I'd like to say that I think that Orange needs to have more housing and encourage our residents to buy into Orange, and that means home ownership, and to create roads to that process and make it easier for people to want to buy into Orange and really buy in, which means buying homes, condos, co-ops, or single-family homes. I think that's very important to stabilize the economy in Orange. If we don't do that, then we're just going to have people just coming in and passing through Orange and then leaving right back out the back door. So I do think that we should encourage home ownership as a buy-in to making our town more productive and better.
Okay. Thank you. Is that Mr. James?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry for the inconvenience.
I'm glad you were finally able to join us. I think what I'm going to do, since there was just one person left to answer the last question, I'm going to let Mr. Toussaint answer that last question, and which was about whether any of the candidates feel that we have an overabundance of low-income housing as opposed to middle-income or market rate housing here. and then I'm going to let you give your opening statement and your answer to that question. Does that work? Everyone okay with that?
I didn't hear the last part.
I'm going to just let Mr. Toussaint answer that question because he was in the rotation, and as soon as he's finished, I'm going to give you an opportunity finally to give your opening statement and to answer, and I'll repeat the last question and let you answer that, and I'll put you in the rotation, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So Mr. Toussaint, the question was,
Jody, I believe I just answered that question for you.
Okay, so we're good, okay. We're a little confused. Okay, now finally, Mr. James, who has been trying very patiently to get in. We're all a bit new dealing with this technology. So I'm going to belatedly give Mr. James a chance to give his opening statement. He has 2 minutes for that. Oh, please tell me you're still here.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Orange residents, especially. This is Mr. James. I'm living at 738 Irving Terrace, Orange, New Jersey, for over 20 odd years, close to 30 years. And what motivates me to get involved in politics is because when I look and see what is taking place in the community, especially in the South Ward, to me is not acceptable. When I come to America, the South Ward was like a champion. Today I see the South Ward is running down so bad. I see the North Ward, West Ward, all of these wards is running down. When I campaign and look and see what is taking place with these houses, and we have city councils sitting there for all these years, is a real disgrace. We need persons in the council to speak up for our citizens and our homeowners. We need to go out and find help for homeowners. Don't sit back in the council and just talk. We need persons to go and find some help for the homeowners in the community. And that is my passion right now towards Orange. I need to give my service to the community, which I have the ability to do because I serve on the Public Works Board for a couple of years well, and most of my advice, the council accept it, but they don't act on it. So it's important for me to go forward that I can make policy decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Mr. James, the last question that everybody had been answering was, do you feel that we have in Orange an overabundance of low-income housing as opposed to middle-income or market rate housing? And what do you propose? How do you propose the council should address that?
No, is the housing system in Orange is lack of control, no management. I believe that we did short of inspectors some years ago. And because we're short of inspectors, most of these houses in the community don't get the proper inspection. So because of that, a lot of these houses run down. But as a council, we should identify these communities that we have these problems. Persons trying to move into the community because of opportunity coming out of New York. But we are in Jersey, we are in Orange, we are
15
not
seconds.
yet ready for the people because we are not, as a council, making proper preparation for them. We are having persons come in and we have no place to put them, especially for there to park their 3 and 4 cars. So it's very important, first thing, that we have a proper survey of what is taking place within our system before we concentrate upon the housing. Because the housing is always there.
Time's
If
up.
there's a problem, we need a proper.
Okay, you've hit time on this question, but all the candidates will have equal time to answer the remaining questions. And the next question is, based on the current master plan, What are your thoughts on the plan, and what are your ideas about furthering the redevelopment of Main Street and our transportation systems, especially the train stations? And I think we're going to start the rotation over at this point because we have a new member. So we'll just start from the beginning, and it'll now be Mr. Holmes, Mr. James, Mr. Marable, Mr. Montague, and Mr. Toussaint.
Right. Jody, can you give me that question again, please?
Based on the current master plan, what are your thoughts on the plan, on the master plan, and what are your ideas for redeveloping Main Street and our transportation systems, in particular the train stations?
All right, I got you. Thank you.
Thanks.
The master plan, I know, is a continually improving or working in progress document that continues to change over time. I think it was just recently approved within the past 2 years. And so I know that the development that needs to happen on Main Street is in the process of happening. I think one of the benefits of living in the city of Orange Township is the train stations. We have 2 train stations in this city, and it would be beneficial to not just the riders of New Jersey Transit, but also to the residents of the city of Orange Township. If we were to build up those train stations, only one goes to New York. I think there's a way that we can work it where
15
both
seconds.
are going to areas that are being traveled to. So there are some benefits of the master plan and the transportation system that's in Orange that Orange can look at and benefit from.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. James?
Yes, I believe we have a very good master plan. I believe Chris Hart, he really worked on this plan for Orange. He go around to different communities, which is very good, and identify what could make Orange different. And I believe the master plan is well done. All we need to do is to have proper committees to oversee these things that it take place, not just to have the plan, but to make sure that these things happen. That's what the problem with the city halls. They don't go out and make sure these things happen. They sit back in the council and say yes, but you gotta go out and to see that the master plan work.
15 seconds.
Thank you. Mr. Marable? Mr. Marable?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Yes, I think I've touched on this to some extent already. The epicenter of Orange's master plan, which I disagree with, is housing. Housing, housing, and more housing. I believe what Orange needs to do is to brand itself. And certainly being a transportation hub could be such a brand. Another brand could relate to Orange's restaurants. In my view, one of the most successful businesses in Orange is Star Tavern, Star Pizzeria, if you will, for 2 reasons. They make a ton of money and people come from all over to go there. What draws them to Orange? I don't know, but we need to find a way to duplicate that. We need to find a way
15 seconds.
to reproduce that and brand ourselves in a way that makes people want to patronize Orange businesses.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Montague? You're still muted.
Okay. I see Orange moving in the right direction. I see the Rioch Street, but like some of my other candidates said, we're focusing too much on housing. What about business? We need to find a way to create jobs, bring in businesses, like Mr. Marable said, restaurants. We're focusing more on housing. We should focus more on businesses, hospitals, things of that nature. And we get ready to knock down our recreation center. We're one of the only cities in Essex County that doesn't have a recreation center. And I think that should be part of the master plan as well.
15 seconds.
There's a lot of things we need to touch on. Master plan could be adjusted. There's always adjustments to a master plan.
Thank you. And Mr. Toussaint?
What I will say is we do have a very good selling point, which is our transportation system. The 2 train stations that wrap around our city can and would be a selling point. However, I would have to say that those train stations have to become more commuter friendly. There should be a coffee shop there. The stations need to be more relevant to the traveling experience on a day-to-day basis. Secondly, I do think part of the plan should be we need to have quality supermarkets in our town that are just not pop in and go type of situations. We need full-scale supermarkets with delis, with the fish buying experience, the entire situation. We need to really look at that. And as far as the downtown,
15 seconds.
As far as the downtown, we really do need to have we need to be more diversified with the type of services that are on Main Street. Other than just, you know, what you see. We need to have different types of restaurants that are going to pull in a different, an additional clientele of people.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next question is, what are your thoughts on historic rehabilitation of Main Street, Orange Hospital, and our other historic neighborhoods, which Orange now has 5 of, and that's not even counting Ivy Court. So I think Mr. Holmes spoke first last time, so Mr. James, you get to answer this one first.
Yes, I am a part of a medical team, and at this time we need medical more than before. And I believe that we have the old hospital that was torn down or disbanded. At this time we need to do something towards medical for our community. I believe I could do a lot for medicine and medical purpose within Orange community, especially what is happening now and what's going to happen in the future. So it's 2 areas I'm concentrating right now on: medical for seniors and young people, and also the recreation, because we are in a new community coming into Orange.
15 seconds.
We have an international cricket empire coming into United States, and Orange is one of the main hubs for it. So we got to start to do something to let young people have more recreation in that park. So we need to study some more, and we have nobody in the council know about sports really, or the wide area of sports.
Okay.
So we
Time.
Okay. Mr. Marable.
Thank you. Some years ago, the city of Orange tore down the front fascia of a building on Main Street, only to then find out that it was a historic building. It wound up being a modern cell phone store. The key to that and related issues are communication. We have to value this as an issue. Orange is a historic town that does have much in it that is considered historic, but we've got to always have that at the forefront of our conversation and our communication so that we're not tearing things down needlessly that should be preserved. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Montague.
Okay. I agree. We are a historic town. We have a lot of historic buildings. We need to preserve them. But it's a lot to be done in Orange. You know, we have to sit back down and do the research and find out. I don't know about all the historic properties. I do know about the one across the street from Orange High School that they built the parking lot around. That was a historic building. But we need to find out before we do things like that. And they should be sacred.
Thank you. Okay. And Mr. Holmes.
You're still muted.
You're still muted. Okay.
I don't know if Mr. Toussaint was supposed to go, but.
Oh, I did. Did I miss him?
Oh,
Did I miss Mr. Toussaint? I thought he'd.
yes.
I think I responded already.
Right. That's
Yeah.
okay. I thought he responded. Okay.
I apologize.
Yeah.
So I know that there's a lot of historic buildings here in the city of Orange Township, and they have to be upgraded and repaired so that they can maintain their historic value and the historic beauty that each one has. Jody, I have to admit that I'm surprised that it was 5. I didn't know that of the 5th one, but nevertheless, I'm glad to hear that there are historic areas in the city of Orange Township, and that we have to care for them as we care for our elderly, those that are young at heart, because they have gone through the changes of time and still standing strong. And
15
that's
seconds.
we need to value. The hospital, I know there's areas, that's an area that we need to look at, and it may take more than 1 or 2 developers to fix that area.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Okay, we have time for maybe 2 more questions, and we actually, before we move to closing statements, I may be able to consolidate some of the questions. Let's see, there's a question about the city administration has allowed vacant and abandoned properties to be passed on for no tax developments to developers, and what is your position on this? And I think that was kind of covered by people's responses to the question about limiting pilots. So I think we'll move on from that. Let's see.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
when we I believe I missed that part, because the number 1 place vacant to me an abandoned building is our city hall. Our city hall is a disgrace. We need to start with that. And our council should be doing something about it. Our city hall is a disgrace.
Okay. Point well taken. I will let you, since you joined us late through no fault of your own, Mr. James, comment on the question of should we be limiting the length of pilots that are given to developers?
Yes, we should.
Okay.
We should, because we are giving persons so much time that when their time is up, we have nothing left. We have fear going back to abandon. So we need to make sure, and this is why diversity is important. We need diversity in Orange. Orange Council is just one way. We need diversity. And if without diversity, we're going to run into a lot of problems. We have Spanish, we have Italians, we need diversity in the council. We cannot just sit in the council one way all these years. We need diversity of people, and that will help Orange to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. James. Okay, we've had a number of questions which I'll try to consolidate on compensation for council members. And so there are a number of proposals. So the questions are, would you consider having a stipend rather than a salary? Would you consider eliminating perks? And what would your position be on term limits? So I'm going to consolidate all those questions. Let's see. I think Mr. Marable would be first in the rotation this time.
Obviously, council salaries is an issue that is a significant issue, but frankly, I'm much more concerned about the salaries of people in City Hall directors and people in significant positions who make extreme salaries, but yet have full-time jobs elsewhere. It's a much bigger concern for me. When I was on the city council, I wrote a detailed memo to each of my council colleagues advising them not to hire a finance director who was soon going to be the mayor of another municipality. Well, they did it anyway, and he's full-time for us, and I'm sure during the COVID pandemic, he's full-time there as well. But you cannot serve 2 masters. So I think there are a lot of issues related to salaries and employees in the city, but I don't think
15 seconds.
Council salaries are the big fish. I think the big fish are directors, other people in critical positions who are doubling down on their work time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marable. Mr. Montague.
Yes. You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Look, Definitely ditto to what Mr. Marable said. As far as council salaries, personally, I'm not running for council person because of a salary or a stipend. I'm running because I want to see a better Orange. I want to see a better tomorrow. So I do believe in term limits. I don't think anybody should really serve over 2 terms. Then you got to move on. Okay? I don't think somebody should have a career, be a career councilman for 4 terms, 5 terms. I do believe in term limits. And definitely, we got to get a hold
15 seconds.
We have to get a hold of these large salaries. The only way we're going to ever get a hold on our taxes to make sure our taxes don't rise, we have to get a hold of these enormous salaries of these appointees. I'm all in favor of people that are, because I'm in the union.
Time's up.
Anybody that's in the union,
Okay, that's time. Okay, Mr. Toussaint.
Jody, thank you. I would have to disagree with Mr. Montague and say that I believe that council members, there should not be a term limit. As long as the person is effective in doing their job and representing the people should determine how long that person keeps that seat, not an arbitrary limitation.
In terms of limitations on salaries and perks?
Salaries and perks, I don't think city council members should be getting quote unquote perks, whatever that may mean. In terms of salaries, I do believe that council members are doing a job and they should be paid. I do believe that. But I also agree with Mr. Marable that the bigger issue is these huge inflated salaries that these city halls
15 seconds.
I think that's the bigger issue.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes.
I hold the constituents responsible for making the council people work for whatever they earn. Whatever salary they are earning, I hold the residents of Orange responsible to ensure that they are getting all that they deserve out of those council people, regardless of what the salary is. Term limits, as long as the individuals are working and being effective in Orange. Not going along with the game plan, but being effective in making Orange a better place for the residents. Term limits, I have no issues with. As Mr. Marable said, the concern is the bigger fish, those that are in City Hall earning money without doing the work.
Thank you. Okay, and Mr. James?
Yeah, my problem is I believe that the city workers is unbalanced. We have in so much persons working outside of the city that not belongs into the city. So most of our resources going out. You know, we got to look into that. I 100% support term limit. I believe term limit is opportunity for other persons to come and show their ability and skill. We are in an age of technology now. Term limit is very important. Why should a person serving more than 3 terms? It don't make any sense. Term limits is very important to the development of a community and a nation.
Thank you. Okay, one final question, and then we're going to move on to closing statements. And I will again try to consolidate a couple of questions. There's been question about the appearance of the city generally, code. There are legal businesses in neighborhoods like auto repair that are supposed to be residential neighborhoods. There are issues with parking, commercial vehicles parking where they shouldn't. The appearance of the park is deteriorated. So the question is, what can we do through supporting code enforcement or otherwise to see that we keep Orange as beautiful as it should be? And I think Mr. Montague? Mr. Montague, you're first.
Could you repeat the
Okay,
last
so
part?
Yeah, so we've had complaints about the park being in bad condition, about businesses like auto repair shops operating in what are supposed to be, residential only, so commercial parking where there shouldn't be. So what can we do through code enforcement or otherwise to see that Orange is kept in good order and as attractive as it should be?
Okay, well, first of all, they have residential and commercial areas. So if they adhere to that, you know, if an auto shop is in a commercial district, it's a possibility they can park the cars. But the bigger problem that I heard you say, the parks. You know, I think we have, and maybe somebody can correct me, we don't count Orange Park, that's a county park.
Right.
The parks are in bad condition, and it's not because of Public Works, it's just deteriorating over time. We have to upgrade our parks to make it a little more safer for the kids. And I
15 seconds.
I believe in upgrading the parks every few years. A lot of kids spend a lot of time there, and because of the winter months and then the heat, a lot of it cracks up. They need to fix some of the parks. And I'm not putting the blame on anyone.
Okay.
You have to upgrade the parks.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Montague. Mr. Toussaint?
I think that there should be more police enforcement with our public parks. We have a skate park that has been totally vandalized with graffiti, and how did that even happen with no one watching? So I think the real answer is we need more police enforcement. We need more community policing, as you will, to walk, to talk, to communicate, and to become a fixture in the community. That will resolve a lot of these problems.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Holmes.
I was very pleased when the College Park down in the North Ward opened up, because it provided an opportunity for individuals to spread out. One of the issues that with the cleanliness of the parks is we have so few parks that everyone is congregating in one particular park or the few parks that are available. I was actually looking forward to the skateboard park opening over at Colgate, but I didn't get a chance to use that. I think code enforcement needs to do a more diligent job, as well as Public Works. Public Works is responsible for cleaning those public parks in those areas and in the streets to ensure that the cleanliness is there. Code enforcement has to do their job in
15 seconds.
The code. And home ownership also goes a long way. When we have homeowners, we have more responsible individuals in the city.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. James.
Yes, the number one thing I realize need to be done is neighborhood watch. The South Ward, we have a very good neighborhood watch team, and we have persons who really on top of things. All the other wards, I believe, we need to enforce our members or homeowners to form home security, home watch. We need that again. Bring back home watch, that we can sit on our verandas, we can go in our front yard, we can do things. It's not really home enforcement. What we need is neighborhood watch. We need to look out for one another again. We need to really put the emphasis
15
on one
seconds.
another. Look out for one another, and we'll be all right.
Thank you, Mr. James. And finally, on this question, Mr. Marable.
Yes.
Okay, you're still mute. Okay, I can hear you now.
I have tremendous respect for individuals who work for the Public Works Department in the city of Orange. I have friends there. They do a difficult job and are inadequately compensated. But we have to depoliticize the Public Works Department in the city of Orange. See numerous reports of Public Works employees doing work at city employees' homes. I see it myself, and I've received many reports of Public Works employees doing campaigning. That's not what they're for. And any time take away from their primary function is not time well spent to beautify the city of Orange. Let those people do the job they were hired for. Depoliticize the Public Works Department in the city of Orange.
Thank you, Mr. Marable. Okay, so we are now close to the end of our time. I'm going to give each of our candidates 1 minute for a closing statement, and then since I'm the moderator, I get the privilege of the very last word. And we started with Mr. Holmes giving the first opening statement. So I'm going to ask Mr. James to give the first closing statement. And again, each candidate has 1 minute.
I want to thank the panel, the persons who put this panel together. I believe it was well done. I want to thank all the council person on the panel. I hear the discussion, and I see that every one of you will be a good council person. So let us go forward and do our best working for our community to make Orange a better place than we left it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James. Mr. Marable?
Yes. We just finished the NFL draft. And whether you are a football fan or not, you probably know that there are 11 players on a football team, 11 NFL players on a team. Interestingly, there are 11 candidates for at-large city council in the city of Orange. Now, if an NFL player did not show up for a game, what would happen to him? He'd be cut, he'd be demoted, he'd be traded, he'd be on the taxi squad. What then of the 6 city council candidates who have not chosen to show up today? I have tremendous respect for the 5 individuals who did show up today. And I think we, and we alone, are most deserving of your vote, starting with the most qualified candidate, Ed Marable for City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marable. Mr. Montague.
Look, Ed's right. And everybody on this panel, I have so much respect for. I know everybody personally. I know all of us, we care about Orange deeply. Everybody on this that's here right now on this panel, including myself. I just want to let everybody know. One of the council people that didn't show up, Antoinette Hall, I spoke to her. She was texting me. She is sick. She can't even talk. Hopefully she's going to be okay. She's in the bed under the doctor's orders. Please vote by mail before Tuesday, May 12th. Team Orange, New Jersey, Weldon, Montague, 16 big. I care about each and every one of you.
15 seconds.
Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you, panel.
Thank you, Mr. Montague. Mr. Toussaint?
I'm truly honored to be a part of this discussion today with all of these distinguished individuals. And I would like to just say, as your councilman, I will be accountable to your wants and needs. Helping our town become brilliant at the basics, such as customer service delivery, departmental leadership accountability for goals and objectives, which includes careful and detailed money management. We cannot change what was as we live in this moment, but together we can change what will be. And I'm asking for your vote to be part of that change. Please consider line 10B, and please go to KennethToussaint2020.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toussaint. And finally, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Jody, Lori, Dr. Johnson. Thank you very much for putting together this platform for the candidates. I am Dwight E. Holmes, and I was born here in the city of Orange Township, raised here in the city of Orange Township. I work here in the city of Orange Township, and I fellowship here at the Love of Jesus Family Church here in the city of Orange Township. My passion is service. Allow me the opportunity to serve you as a councilman at large, Dwight E. Holmes, line 8B on your mail-in ballot. Thank you and be safe.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. I'd like to thank all of the participants. We did invite all of the candidates, although it was shorter notice than we had planned. Like everyone else, we were kind of caught short by the pandemic. And in case anybody missed it, we did learn that one of the candidates, Antoinette Hall, is sick in bed right now. And so that was the reason she didn't participate, and that certainly should not be held against her. But my thanks to all the candidates who did take the time to show up. Special thanks to Laura Rindlaub for mastering this Zoom webinar technology in very short order. We're all newbies on this. Finally, we had great attendance. We had 43 people participating in this. So thank you to the engaged residents of Orange under very difficult circumstances. We need to see more citizen engagement, but I applaud all of you who showed up and asked questions. Keep doing that. We will be posting future events on the Orange Citizens Action Group webpage, and we'll be posting to Orange Real Talk. We'll be sending out press releases. And for everybody, please keep washing your hands, keep wearing masks when you're going out, protect yourselves and your neighbors. It's possible to have this virus and be contagious without showing symptoms. So it's very important that we protect each other. And if we pull together separately, we'll get through this and I'll be able to start working for a better Orange. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Good
Take
job.
care, be
Good job,
safe.
everybody.
Thanks for your patience.
Great job, Lord.
Thank you. Thank you.